Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. And as a part of the GEEF 2026, we welcome all of you to our session. My name is Samuel Pang. I'm a director of the Institute of African Studies at Yonsei University. As the President Yoon mentioned at the opening session, I think this is the bold challenge for as a Yonsei University to engage with the African continent and African partners in a very different way. We are trying to go beyond, quote unquote, not a colonial way, more like a post-colonial approach to engaging with African partners in a very reciprocal and beneficial, both mutually beneficial and very collaborative way. And again, thank you for coming. And my topic is the decolonizing data colonialism as an introduction to our session. And across our digital world, we hear endless talk about inclusion. But yet power remains wired to the global north, a Euro-American, male-dominated architecture that subscribe our platform and standard and our protocol. This is what we call data colonialism, where empire once seized the land and the sea and the labor. Today's platform captures human life itself, our gesture, our relationship, our conversation being harvested as a behavioral data to fuel surveillance machines owned by a corporate elite. You know, when I say corporate elite, you know what I'm talking about. We have so many big companies. One of the pioneering person, Nick Cloudry and Ulysses Mejias, named this clearly. This is not metaphor, but new enclosure of the relationality mirroring imperialism's phrase of exploration, exploitation, and erasure. The communities in the global south interface with a tool they didn't build, their wisdom reduced to training data for AI that encoded northern bias, gendered, racialized, disabled lives become folders of the algorithm that extracts vulnerability while concentrating profit upward. The result, personhood, deserved in the metrics, presence into the trackable signals. But we like to refuse in this kind of trend. So Institute of African Studies in this way at Yonsei University show how under our ASPIRE mission, advancing knowledge, strengthening partnership, promoting justice, inspiring innovation, reimagining future, engaging community. We centers, as African Institute, we centered African epistemology through the engagement with the many African partners, starting with Rwanda and Tanzania, Egypt, and Ghana. Today we have honored the president of the Ghana with the honorary degree of the public admiration this morning. This is we are trying to form a different kind of relationship that is different from the previous generation. And also we have welcomed the Ban Ki-moon, the UN General Secretary, to be our honorary director of our institute. That's how the Yonsei University is serious about this venture. So I think there will be many solutions. And what about the data sovereignty? What about can we resist this kind of trend? Or can we have an answerable technology, AI and all sorts of stuff? And can we have a not Eurocentric, but can we have a pluralistic university, not only university, pluralistic university? Can we have that kind of AI technology? And as a Yonsei University, can you go beyond the colonial tendency as a higher educational institute? It seems like there are so many ways to do it. I think Yonsei University's African Studies is trying to raise a voice of like prophets in the Bible. We like to say something Otherwise, we would like to say something. So the practice resistance here is to reclaim digital space as the locus of genuine encounter, where technology serves the dignity rather than deserving it into the profit only. So I feel I'm a theologian, I'm an ethicist. I feel like I'm coming from very humanistic perspective, and sometimes that sounds like a very abstract. But because of that, I would like to invite our social scientists to come and talk about this enduring problem. So first, I would like to invite Professor Moon Myung-jae. He's Underwood Distinguished Professor, and he's belonged to the Department of the Public Policy and Management, and he is very well known in our community. And he's going to be talking about searching for global AI governance model and AI for social good. Can we have a round of applause in welcoming him to the podium?
Thank you. Oh, over there, okay. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Well, we have 15 minutes, so I'll just go through the slides that I prepared. I'm Jae Moon. I'm faculty at Public Policy and Management Department, Yonsei University. Well, when I was asked to deliver a presentation, I wonder what would be the best title for my presentation. And I want to mention about the global AI governance, because there are a lot of issues that we need to talk about. At the same time, AI not for private economic goods, but global social goods or public goods. So that was my intention, why I have this title. AI should be inclusive to be considered a foundational aspect of a social good, particularly global social good. We know there are a lot of discussions out there. Sometimes international organizations for global communities, sometimes national government entity, sometimes professional associations. They really try to talk about how we maximize the benefits of AI, at the same time minimize the risk we can think of out of AI. There are a lot of talks out there, but we know the progress is very slow, and sometimes it's not really practically implemented. Beautiful words out there, but not necessarily we make a good substantive progress. Well, my primary question is, how can AI be governed globally, and if possible, so its benefits are distributed more evenly. We know it won't be like that if we just put it in a natural way. So that intervention is necessary by government, by global communities. Otherwise, we know the result we will see. So to do that, we should make AI more inclusive, legitimate, and socially beneficial. And in fact, before I come in here, I had one forum, how we revitalize the AI ethics for social goods. We have that in Korea, and now the advancement of technology is so fast so that we try to revisit the AI ethics guidelines and try to reformulate it. So here, what are the policies we can think of? We know there are a lot of models we experimented. There are a lot of global issues. One might be nuclear weapons. And we had some global institutional arrangement to curb the non-proliferation treaty of weapons, nuclear weapons. Climate change, we do have some arrangement, but we know that it's not really that effective. So that was my intention, and how we can formulate global AI governance for social goods, and how we can make it more inclusive, particularly the socially, economically disadvantaged population, at the same time developing countries. We all know there are benefits and risk in AI, and probably I don't have to go through that. To 2016, when we had AlphaGo Go game with Isedol 10 years ago, and there was one report presented by the World Economic Forum. And that report, they really tried to map out different disruptive technologies and how we can think of the degree of possible risk, at the same time potential positive consequences or benefits to humankind. And then they tried to map out all different kinds of disruptive technologies. And on the right-hand side and then upper, which means highest level of possible risk and then highest level of benefits to humankind. So that two very contrasting phases. Those technologies, one, robotics, and then AI. And we are pretty sure why there's a doomer and boomer debate on AI. Well, I want to focus on participatory and inclusive governance model. And in fact, I wrote a piece in Public Administration Review, which is public administration journal in our field. And I focused, presentation is, participation is very critical. Participations, there are three different main highlighting points. One is broader, inclusive representation of the people, so that not only male, but also female, not only the particular private sector AI company groups, but also civic groups, consumers populations, and professionals in different disciplines, so that we should have good representation. The other one is dialogues across different stakeholders. And then policy coordination, because there are a lot of trade-offs whether or not we really pursue particular policy. Well, now, because of the geopolitical situation around the world, and then curbing AI seems to be very behind in priority, because once we try to regulate, mitigate some risk, and then a lot of private sector, they complain, well, you suffocate our AI ecosystem. And we're gonna be behind because we are competing with US, we are competing with China. So a lot of values and normative aspects are really behind. In that regard, well, inclusiveness, and then some of the fairness, those norms will be behind. We know there are a lot of SDGs, right? Social goods are part of that. Poverty, inequality, education, gender equality, and health, safety, environment. There are many things. There are some solutions out there. Sometimes, for example, Google, they do have AI for social good programs, and they try to help some of the people in poverty to eradicate poverty, of course. And then they have some issues like fisheries. They try to utilize the satellite images and then help to biodiversity and environmental preservations. There are a lot of solutions out there, but somehow they are very tentative and sometimes very symbolic, rather than really continued substantive progress in many ways. So we do have a lot of homeworks. The challenge is technology is moving so fast. Fast-moving risk landscape is one. Policy interdependence, a lot of policies here and there, they're all interdependent, so that it should be well coordinated. Institutional and legal uncertainty out there, even geopolitical situation actually make the issues problem worse. And then representation gap, which I talked about. In fact, those people who are working in big tech companies, very few women, and then minorities, and also PhDs in technology and AI. Even the share is much smaller. And policy dialogue tables. I had a chance to look at AI ethics guidelines. I quoted 100 AI ethics guidelines and then who actually participated. And then civic groups, very least represented. A lot of big tech companies and government officials out there, professionals, yes, but some of the groups are really not evenly represented. What are the solutions then? Can we learn from the past? And I tried to look at some of the examples. And one example would be, well, how IAEA, the atomic nuclear the global institutional arrangement, we know what IAEA does. Well, of course, they try to promote nuclear materials for humankind. At the same time, they try to curb and constrain some of the illegal, inappropriate use of nuclear materials and transmit all that stuff. Well, is it successful? Sometimes yes, sometimes very no. I mean, some of the countries, if they, exit the membership, and then there's nothing you can do. Maybe there's some sanctions you can do, but we know it's not that successful. And so that I think we need to revisit how IAEA international framework, what's the benefits we got, what's the success partially, what are the limitations we have. The other one would be what we have done with the climate change. We all know intergovernmental panel for climate change. They try to collect scientific evidence for climate change. There are working groups, 3-4 working groups. They try to find a way to mitigate the risk. But we all know it's good to have good scientific, trustful evidence collections. And I think that's very important. At the same time, we know it's not really that effective in terms of governing a lot of policies for climate change. EU tried to have risk-based regulations. They tried to regulate. In EU, they had the first AI regulation in the world, Korea second. But EU recently, they sort of postponed implementation AI regulation in many ways because of the US-China competitions. And EU, they tried to promote their own AI industries, and then they changed their position a little bit. Well, promoting AI for social good, a practical two-pillar architecture. To me, on the one hand, risk pillar, and we should have good standards, conformity, sort of a IAEA-like, and then investigation, review, and that one is very important. Second piece would be more active searching for social good alternatives. Of course, we need some resources. We need cooperations. We need what are the benefits and priorities we should put for global social goods. There are some discussions already, but we are not quite there. Well, policy recommendation would be, well, moralizing AI and regulating AI and promoting AI for social good. Making governance model and more inclusive, participatory, as I talked about. And also, we should have good AI impact assessment framework. We have some, UNESCO has one, Korea has one, but it's very not effective yet. It's still experimental. Strengthening privacy protection, and then data, as Professor Pang mentioned. Data sovereignty, not only AI sovereignty, data sovereignty ownership issue is very, very critical. And launching a global AI for social good initiative, and I think that this might be some of the opportunity for us to work on that part. Any sovereign AI model for every country. Well, we want to have a sovereignty, AI sovereignty, but can we have AI sovereignty for the countries who do not have good capacity? Is it sovereignty AI transferable? Those are some of the things that we need to think about in future. And I love to talk more, but if you have some question later, I'd love to add some more later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, if you have more time, I would like to hear him speaking like extra 20 hours actually on this subject. Thank you very much. And Professor Moon's participatory governance lead the path of this conversation, more democratic representation, deliberative integration, administrative coordination to make AI all-inclusive and working for social good. And hopefully this is SDG aligned. And now I'd like to introduce our second guest, Professor Samuel Lee. He's the Associate Director of African Institute as well as he's the Vice President of the Admissions Office in our university. And he is also Professor of the Public Policy and Management at Yonsei University. So this floor is yours, Professor Lee. He's going to be talking about AI divide on the issue. Very important issue. Please.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Professor Lee. I'm the Associate Director of Institute of African Studies. He's a director, associate director. So he's stepping down, I'll be the director. So he's a setting power, rising power. So it's a good reason to concentrate, right? Yeah, like Professor Moon talking about the general governance is there, but in this time, I'd like to discuss about the AI divide there. AI divide is not a concrete ideas yet, but it's emerging. So let me see. Okay, I attended like a UNESCO the Digital Learning Week last year. And then we have a lot of discussion about the AIs and AI in education. Then even though we have a lot of discussion, what the one word struck my mind was the AI divide. We discussed about the digital divide a lot. And then we had a lot of policy measures to reduce the digital gap among countries, among groups like that. But what I discovered in 2025 in Paris was everybody was concerned about the AI divide. Looks like there's a huge divide regarding AI. The problem is, if you look at the digital divide definition, it says that the gap between individuals, household, business, geographic areas, different socioeconomic levels, regard both to their opportunities to access the ICT and to their use of internet. So it's about the access to the gadgets and networks like that. But if you look at the AI divide, there was a 2023, there's a policy observatory inside by the OECD. They say AI divide gaps between countries in their ability to develop, adopt, and benefit from AI due to difference in skill, compute resource, data availability, and investment. So AI divide is much wider concepts than digital divide. Digital divide, think that, oh, there is a gadget, there's a networks there. So if you can access to the internet, and then you have some computers or laptops there, you can use the internet. That's it. But the AI here is a kind of ability to develop, adopt, and benefit. There's a huge scales in there. So it means that digital divide, I think there's a kind of policy task we can handle that. But in terms of AI divide, I think it's a very daunting task because it's just emerging. And then it covers wide range of definitions. So it's very hard to deal with these issues. So it's common problems in South, global South. I just focusing on Africa. If you just pick any country in African continent and look up their population pyramid, it looks like this. Yeah, in Korea, it's the other way around, right? But in Africa, there's a huge young people. So by 2050, the under 20s, 1/3 of entire world population under 20 will be Africans. So in 2050, you meeting some person in their 20s, there's a 33% that guy from Africa, right? That's already predetermined fact. They're already there. And then we're facing this kind of issues. And then our policy issues is concentrated around here. They just like, they're there. And then that they're not well educated, do not have any connection, and don't have the money and gadget to access to AIs. So today, this morning, we have an honorary doctorate degree conferment ceremony to Ghanaian president. And then His Excellency talking about the power of Africa is power population. There's so many young people there, so that's the power of Africa. I think that's the double-edged sword. So many young people there, there's a potential. But so many young people undereducated, no job. That's nightmare. Instead of the kind of computers, if somebody give them an AK-47, that's a disaster. And then you know that AK-47, you can buy less than $1,000, right? It's much cheaper than MacBooks. And then that's the kind of problem. So when I look at the population pyramid, oh no, this is double-edged sword. It might someday, it will explode. And if you look at some kind of demonstration on the street with the youngsters in Kenya, Tanzania, and Libya, there's all this problem. So many young people out of the school, less educated, undereducated. Then once they educated, no jobs. That's the kind of problems, okay? So rapid growth of population education, so naturally, like in teachers. Usually it takes 20 years to come up with the good teachers. It takes 20 years. But we have a population explosion. School buildings, there's no school buildings. And then no educational material. They have no textbooks. And then no tuition to attend the school. So many people from Tanzania or Uganda, young females, they dropped out of their elementary school because their parents cannot afford the tuition. Then they being forced to marry. So usually, young female students in their 10 years old, they forced to get married to a 30 years old man. They're sold to them. So that's very popular in Africa in there. So I think the damage could be cumulative when there's no early intervention. So we have so many young people with no proper educations there. Now we can talk about the digital divide. You can see that there's a percentage of individuals using internet by region, and this is Africa. It's a big change between 2019 and 2025. Still, there's a big change in Africa, but lagging behind. Yeah, this is a serious problem for them, right? So we're talking about AI divide. Still, they're suffering from the digital divide problem, right? This is the kind of things we never experience. Even though when we're traveling to Africa, we're complaining about the internet is so slow or something like that, but usually there's no internet, right? And internet use by gender, there's still gaps in Africa. Males 40%, female 31%. So in gender gaps, there are. And then mobile phone ownership, this is mobile phone ownership, African people, 66% have the ownership of mobile phone, but the use of internet, 36%. So they have like a very old cell phones, which doesn't have internet access. That's those kind of situations in there. So when I look at the AI divide, we have a diverse dimension. For the infrastructural disparity, just not there. No paved highways, no internet access, no phones, and that's the infrastructure disparity. And technology concentration, and then disparity between large and small companies, lead to productivity disparity. So big company adopting AIs and then increasing their productivity. That's why Amazon.com is laying off so many people. They adopted the AI and increased productivity. They say, we don't need any more management teams. Yeah. And then it means that a lot of layoff means that there's an increased productivity with the given resources, right? Age and education, the younger and more educated using more AI. That's the kind of things, right? It's very hard to teach your parents to use the AI, right? Users and non-users. So among these groups, there are so many active AI users, no AI users, grade differences, kind of things that happen here. And then job opportunity and securities too. So recently there is the report from Anthropic about AI use. They find the theoretical limits and then what's going on in reality. They found that workers in the most exposed professions are more likely to be older, female, more educated, and higher paid. Looks like they do not find any big contribution to the unemployment, but they find that hiring of younger workers has slowed in exposed occupation. This is what's happening in America right now. I think this evidence will be stronger over time. So this is kind of like their findings there. So here, computer math, business finances, and office administration. There's a big evidences that Anthropic users heavily using in these areas. And then there are theoretical limits there, but actually there's not much use. Arts, media, healthcare, lot there, but office administration, management, business finances, computer math, there's huge the usage is there. So exposing. Concerns for the AI is about the digital AI and AI literacy. Here is it like when teachers, students use AI, just only machines that provide answers. Learning will not happen. So many participants from third world in 2025 in UNESCO, they feel like AI just thrown them by the big companies. It was just thrown. They're throwing things into the classroom, and then school is not ready. And then many people think that learning is not happening. So many people was good in using AI in answering the kind of questions, but many teachers feeling learning is not happening. So it takes a lot of energy to teach them. So teaching students to examine AI biases, errors can greatly enrich learning. So there is a big differences constitute AI literacy gaps. It's not just a digital divide, AI divide there, AI literacy gap. Even though AI is there, how to use it effectively differ tremendously based on their background. So that's the kind of things I would like to focus on, AIT literacy gaps is there. And disparity and resources and these issues too. And then the thing is the facing digital divide as well as AI divide at the same time. So it's a double divide or double division is happening in there. So I think the gap is widening. And then most of the commercial AI models designed by around English and major international language and leading companies belong to either United States or China, right? So that's the kind of issues. And then minority language face limited content and weaker support, or the textbooks and then the texting and the preferences can be fed into the other countries' LLM, and then the use for their resources. And that's a serious issue for us. And then regulatory gaps, they have just no idea. So the situation is, we are just at the mercy of big tech company. And then Professor Moon talking about the possibility of having a global governance, I'm very pessimistic. Because this area is highly dominated by tech companies, and there's nothing we can do about it, unless you come up with your own language models or AIs there, right? Even Korean government trying to fight against the Google is no way to fight against it. So it will contributing the broader the global inequality in there. So I think it will just like accelerate the inequalities between countries and then across the social groups. So digital divide, AI divide, it will lead to worsening inequality, loss of human capitals is there. And then we need a very comprehensive investment creating infrastructure education material. At this, the pace, I think there's no future for laying the infrastructures of AI in African continents. It's too slow, and the money is not there. You know, in Korea, also, we're lagging behind. We're trying to buy more GPUs and something like that, building more data center. Africa is a real problem, it's real challenging. It will be there. So can AI help teacher shortage? Yes. Facility shortage somehow. Outdated education material, yes. Affordability of education, yes. Effective learning, it depends if you just look at the education in there. So unless there is a very good teachers out there, it's very hard to make the student learn something by depending solely on AI. That's the kind of issues, very serious issues there. So teachers need to be trained, affordable but powerful machines. Now there's a iMac Neo notebook is out there. Still is $1,000, close to $1,000. They usually African salary people, they earn $50 a month. So still expensive. For us, it's very cheap one. Very expensive. You need to just save your 10-month salary to buy the cheapest MacBooks there. So that's the kind of things. So this is kind of issues. Serious resources to train teachers. Machines should be regularly updated, renewed. Software should be bias-free and reflect local context. And data security is another issues too. So the reason I'm just presenting this idea, whenever you look at the AI, we see that those kind of AI divide happening in our Korean society, but at the global scale, the divide, the magnitude of the AI divide much bigger, and it will got bigger as time goes by, and it means that a lot of people in humanities will lag behind, and then they will suffer from that. So there should be something should be done to deal with this, but technological progress too fast, then the magnitude of investment to catching up with the AI development, huge. So it looks like the hope for other countries to catching up with those technological development, I think like hope is like diminishing further over time. So there should be collective action, as Professor Moon suggested. There should be collective action by the World Organization to deal with these issues. So students in the African continent have some access to the AI. At the same time, they should use it effectively for the effective learning. That's the kind of issues I'd like to point out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee. That's very illuminating the word and challenging word for us. And obviously, Professor Lee's AI divide revealed the educational frontline, language bias and regulatory to avoid literacy gap. I think when you come to idea of the Africa, since this festival is initiated by the African Institute, whether this imported system of the West threatens the culture of the non-West, it becomes cultural eraser. It becomes erased unless we meet with the Global South-led resistance, like a teacher training and localized software, bias-free tool. Is it really possible? You know, when we thinking about this whole AI and information, I mean, this reminds me, sometimes it's very rational, sometimes it's good, but justice and all sorts of good idea, as we mentioned. I think I was thinking of the one book title that challenged me all the time. When you talk about rationality, whose rationality? So when you're talking about justice, whose justice? So I think from the perspective of the African Institute, can we put the idea of justice from the global south into the talking about justice and rationality? I think that it would be really challenging because the AI or big company is very much interested in global south, not because anything, because they're going to have a data harvest really. They are really concerning about that. Is it possible to include the voices and the epistemologies, the languages from the global south into this AI-driven system? So that would be the real challenge for us. So, and also, what is the role of the higher education, like Global South University or Yonsei University? I mean, Professor Moon, you've been talking about the social good and inclusion and everything. What would be the role of university, higher education for this challenging period?
Yes, particularly university perspective and role, and in the African context, I guess. By the way, I really impressed with your acronym ASPIRE. Africa-Yonsei Synergy for Progress, Innovation, Research, and Empowerment. And then I should give my own acronym too, so that while Professor Lee made a presentation, and then I tried to get acronym for Africa.
Okay.
AI based.
Okay.
F, future oriented. R, resilience focused. Social resilience, and then system resilience in many ways. And then I, innovation oriented. And then C, collaborations. And then A is aspiration, your aspirations.
Okay, aspiration.
Practically it's very dooming, but I think aspiration is very, very important. And then when I checked all the AI strategies and AI policies around the world, and then the one thing that I was very surprised was there are a lot of African countries, they do have AI policy and initiatives. Well, some of the people might criticize, well, there are a lot of talks, but not action, right? No action talk only. But I think, usually the countries which do not have blue vision, and then sometimes you can find opportunity in the middle of paradigm shift. So that AI changing a lot of things, and then a lot of countries, they try to find opportunity. Well, of course, not naturally it will come. There are a lot of intervention necessary. University-wise, I think the university is critically significant because if you look some of the entities which really drive and advance technologies in Africa, for example, research institutes, not there in terms of capacity. And I think one thing we can say is universities. For example, University of Ghana, University of Ghana, and when from time to time, they do have University of Ghana play as a hub for AI in Africa. There are a lot of discussions and dialogues through the universities for research collaboration and policy discussions. I think South universities, but North-South universities collaboration, and I think the university should play very critical role in facilitate policy dialogues and nurturing AI-related research. And it should play as a platform for organizing multi-dimensional collaboration in many ways. So university is very, very critical. And I think there is hope with aspiration.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Lee, when you're talking about the bias and everything, but I think we have in academia, or even in our epistemology, we have a myth called white mythology. It seems like that is not only happening in the global colonial or imperial time. This is a new form of quote-unquote colonial expansion of the AI or big tech companies. But this seems like most of the workers have the white mythology. So in your presentation, education is so important. Is there any kind of wisdom that comes from you to demythalize this white mythology in AI era in terms of education?
I think the myth coming from the creators of those models and the data feeding into the system there, because already well-written data is feeding into the AI systems, and it reflects the already well-developed countries, cultures, and values and history there. And then every day we just like putting the prompt into the AI, also the AI learning, and then they learning from the prompt there, and they're trying to come up with their preferences, the correct answers, and those kind of things. So two things are out there. First thing is whether the data set from the global size is fitting into the system. Also, the active users from global size using the AI, we will have a feedback systems there. And then one thing I recently found, there is a big paper published from the AI company just saying that the University of Washington people just researched so many AI systems, and they find out all AI systems come out with the same answers to the same questions. So it's a synchronized questions. It means that one kind of like a value system prevailing in the AI. I'm not sure it will change somewhat in the future, but I think once we get used to those kind of ideas, I think unless we have their global south, their own AI system reflecting the value, feeding on their data set, I think it would be very hard to get away from there. So what I'm thinking, if I have all the monies and the powers, I'm trying to interest the African countries to come up with their own African AI to address their current problems. I think like Professor Moon talking about the future issues there, but as I showed before in the graph, I think it's happening right now. And then in 10 years, if you're just traveling to Africa, on the street of the capital city, there's so many young people standing on the street corners doing nothing with the cell phone in their hands because they have no jobs. So that's not kidding. When I give them an AK-47, they can be more productive. So I think unless something should be done very quickly at a very great scale, I think those kind of things will be overflowing to other continents too. So I'm proposing that we need a big push in African continents to build AI infrastructures. So let them use it for their own purpose based on their cultures and values.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the Professor Moon was talking about public goods and the policy. I mean, to the same kind of similar question to you. Do you have any kind of suggestion? Is it possible to demythalize the white bias within the AI or technologies?
Well, there are a lot of intrinsic motivation should be there. I think it's really about the development. Development is not simply given and externally provided. Development, D and open and remove, and then development envelope so that it's not something externally given, it's already there, and then how you open the envelope and then really realize the potential already have in Africa, for example. In the AI era, of course, a lot of people talking about own data, and we should start with the data. And what are the data they do have in different societies and different countries? Collecting, managing data, and use data for their own AI. Of course, we might not be able to build our own models, but we can use Llama, open sources, for example. But using the data we have, and utilize the open sources available. And then easily we can build some solutions for a particular society. So I think we should start with the data and realize how the data is very, very valuable. And then utilize a lot of open source for their own societies. And I think that should be the very important policy. Several years ago, there are a lot of Korean companies, they use Llama open sources, but Llama at the time wasn't really good with the Korean languages. And then some of the people argue, well, why don't you give all the Korean data and information, give it to Llama, and then so that they can provide the better Korean services. Well, Korean government decided not to give of course, our information and data to Llama company, Llama, because of the data sovereignty. So the sovereign AI, for example, it's not about building our own foundational models. It's about control and autonomy. It's related to the data and, of course, own models, and then our computing power, and then chips, and there are a number of dimensions, and probably data is the most important one.
I mean, since yesterday morning, we've been talking about the technology, emerging technology, and especially the discourse of the AI. I think it just comes to the basic conversation. Can AI literacy become a tool for true liberation from poverty or bias and everything? Do you think? I don't know. You say no. What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Well, it could be instrument, but I don't think AI can solve all the problems that we have and then move toward, lead to the one that we want to have. So that's why, well, the intervention in future is not something that come, we should make the future.
Right. But I think as you look at ourselves as humanity, it has its own fault. So can AI be a tool to liberate human being from the inhumane nature of the humanity?
By taking out all the humanity from the earth, like there. I think, in addition to the AI, when thinking about the physical AI, I think it is shutting the window to the global south, because the direction of the development in physical AI is the way to reduce the input of human labor. And then, in order to if you look at all the resources, African continent or global south has the human power, and then physical AI is moving toward to reduce the human power input into the production. So I think it is closing the window very fast for global south countries to catching up with other developed countries. So in that sense, there should be something should be done, because they don't have the time to accumulate technology and capital there.
I mean, in a sense, going back to the Stone Age. the lifestyle, the thinking, the way we live, because that's the lacking point in the AI age.
Right.
So then I think the Africa is the place we can value,
Right.
and that might be much better than diamond in the future, because that will be the valuable thing, which will help us to liberate.
What a nice aspiration. I mean, it's a final question to both of you, because you're talking about policy, the public goods, and the education. I mean, this is a very simple question. It's who holds the regulatory lash when the big tech company rules the classrooms, when he says, what could be the policy for it? I mean, maybe from Professor Lee, maybe if you have we have a very limited time, so maybe quick, short, concise wisdom.
Yeah, we can regulate the industry when there's other options. But many cases for AI, many countries doesn't have any options. So if you want to regulate some AI companies, they just just exit the market. So that's the kind of issues. So in order to avoid that, I think they should have a kind of alternatives to replace the existing AI models. That's why I'm suggesting that we need help the African countries to come up with their own AI, the softwares and models there.
Professor?
For last 5 years, if you check how much political donation made by big tech, rapidly increasing. They know they are likely to be affected by the regulation policies, so that they are lobbying very aggressively, which means the global communities should work for the AI directions for social good. Otherwise, we know what we will have in the future. So big tech is moving very fast for their own interest. And I think global communities, global South collaborations should be revisit what we have done and then what should be done. And then I think taking more aggressive approach. Otherwise, the window will be closed pretty soon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the wisdom from the two eminent professors. In concluding our conversation on the data, I call data colonialism and AI device, and the decolonizing knowledge remind us why such GEEF and this kind of session chose this theme. Emerging technology by itself does not guarantee justice, and it becomes a force for common good only when anchored in the global solidarity. As global solidarity means global 연대, that the president mentioned like this. You keep talking about the solidarity as a 연대. So we have seen how AI can deepen divides between North and South, center and margin, powerful and vulnerable, but also how participatory governance, hopefully South-led innovation and institutions like that our Yonsei Institute of African Studies strive, our partners in other African countries, can transform these tools into the infrastructure of shared dignity for SDG Alliance progress. I mean, obviously, this requires more than technical fix. It demands inclusive institution, multilingual and cultural tools, AI, culturally rooted AI, investments driven by the Global South as well, and a renewed ethical commitment to those most at the risk of being left behind. So one of the SDGs is nobody will left behind. That, how can we achieve that? I mean, as our theme said, the time for action is our theme. Then our task is clear. Move from diagnosing data colonialism to building concrete alliance, policies, and education platform where emerging technology are governed by and with and for all. So this is concluding our conversation this session. And I thank Professor Moon, Professor Lee, your visionary, the wisdom, from your old experience and aspiration for the future in Africa and beyond. Thank you very much for audience, and why don't we give them a round of applause for appreciating what they have done for us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.